All right. I think we are live, Angelo. Everybody, welcome to the first episode of Polar Bears in Flip Flops. I'm your co-host, Andrew Lewin, here with my co-host, Angelo Villagomez. We are starting, this is the first episode, this is the intro episode to this podcast here live on YouTube. We've got some things to say about the ocean. We're going to be doing this once a week. We can't wait. Angelo, why don't you say hello?
Hey everybody, Angelo, like all men of a certain age, I decided I should really get into podcasting. I'm the other polar bear. I'm on the other side of the border down in Washington, D.C., and I am a professional ocean advocate. I've worked in ocean conservation for more than 20 years. I worked for organizations. I currently work for an organization called the Center for American Progress. I work for the Pew Charitable Trust. I worked for the Smithsonian for a little while. But I have advocated for marine protected areas, and I've advocated for fisheries protections, and I've advocated for sharks, and I've done this on small islands, passing local laws. I've done this at the national scale, and I've also done it at different international forums like tuna treaties and international treaties on endangered species.
Amazing.
That's and I'm awesome. Stoked to be here, man. Like I've been on. So fun fact, Andrew's podcast, How to Speak Up for Blue. I was
originally Speak Up for Blue. Yep.
Oh yeah. Well, now it's How to Protect the Ocean.
How to Protect the Ocean. Yeah.
I was your sixth guest.
Yes.
Like 2010, 2011, Obama was president. The Black Eyed Peas were on the radio. So I've been on this podcast train for a while. I've just never been able to say that I was a host.
Yeah. And I've been wanting to get you starting a podcast since we've had that first podcast. Actually, even before that, when I was getting into podcasts, I was like, Angelo's got to be on a podcast, whether it was me or on your own or with somebody else. I was like, Angelo has some things to say way back then when we first started to get to know each other, because I was like, this is somebody who has a lot to say, but a lot of great things to say, and people need to hear him. So I'm super happy that we decided to do this together, because you and I, we go way back. We've known each other for over 15 years now, I think, right?
Yeah, my gosh. Can you believe it's 2026? I almost said it's 2016. It's 2026.
Man, imagine if it was 2016. Those were really interesting days. Those were better days, I would say.
They were. Twitter was still popular.
Yeah, Twitter.
The Marvel universe was good.
Yes. No pandemic. Like hadn't happened. Like, yeah, it was a great time. But yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. Like we're looking forward to doing this. Like we said, we call this Polar Bears and Flip Flops because, well, we kind of look like polar bears, and we wear flip flops quite a bit. Yeah. So, but we've known each other, and it seems like every time we see each other in person, we're not necessarily in Canada or the US. We're at some conference somewhere.
We get to do some cool stuff.
Yeah, last time we got to hang out in Nice, where we did some jumping into the water. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
This was the UN Ocean Conference, which is a very serious conference with lots of important people and lots of security. I think there was something like 60 heads of state, and President Macron was there for like 3 whole days hosting people. Kind of a huge deal. Wanting to be a completely serious person, I hosted a contest to see who could jump in the ocean and make the biggest splash. And I called it the UNOC International Manu competition. And Manu is a style of jumping in the ocean from New Zealand, where you jump in ass first to make the largest splash possible. And it started with, it was actually my buddy James, who's this French guy who lives in New Zealand. I went to a conference that he hosted, and they kept talking about they wanted to pop a manu while we were in French Polynesia at the time. It's like, oh, we got to go pop a manu. And a bunch of us did pop a manu, but Sam, who is the chair of his organization, never got around to popping a manu with us, and it just became like a running joke. And that's kind of how we ended up with the Papa Manu contest at the UN Ocean Conference. That was covered by international media, I might add. Remember, the reporter showed up and the photographer showed up, and there was an actual story about it. and it ended up being in the sort of end of conference story that this outlet did, and they asked us some serious questions, but also had some funny questions, some funny pictures of us jumping in the water.
And I don't think I truly understood what it meant to Papamanu. Like I just thought we were just cliff diving and we were just jumping. I didn't realize it had to be ass first.
It was
I
really
like
it was some of my first Manu popping as well. When I was a kid, you cannonballed. And I feel like as an American, like you run in the ball, you run in the ocean, you're like cannonball, and, you grab your legs and you bounce in. But there's a whole, I mean, we could do a whole episode on popping a Manu. There's a whole Papa Manu community on social media. Like it's like a sport. It's like hockey.
That's so cool. But like what is it? How is it based off of the form, or is it based off the height that you jump from, or both?
I think it's kind of everything. It's like figure skating. It's the whole package. But I think ultimately it's the splash. Like the goal is like
gotcha. The bigger the splash, the better. Like kind of like cannonball. Yeah. Can I just say though, when we got to the place, like we were diving in the Mediterranean, which was phenomenal. The water was perfect. It was super, super clear. You can see the bottom, although the depth perception was not as great. And I remember there was 10 of us, 8 to 10
something
of us,
like that. Yeah,
something like that.
We had
from
multiple nations represented.
Yeah, all over the world, right? I represent Canada. You representing the U.S. And you went off the first cliff like it was nothing. It was higher.
Well, it was my sphincter was tight.
You were okay. You were acting like it was nothing. You're like, yeah, I'll just jump off this, and you jumped, and everybody. I'm like, did you touch the bottom? But you wouldn't really tell us if you touched the bottom.
So it's been 6 months. I touched the bottom. But it was like a little bit. Like I hit the water and then just kind of like softly tapped it with my toes.
You look great doing it. You look fantastic doing it.
Yeah, I did that jump twice, and then literally not another person was willing to jump off that rock. So we went down. And
we were like, no, guys, I can't do this. Like my wife was there. I was like, man, I think I'm going to kill myself if I do this. I did not want to test out the French hospitals. That was like for a broken leg.
Which would have been free. So
yeah,
it was free in Canada too.
Yeah, it's free in Canada. So we have to pay for parking, which we don't like, but it's free in Canada.
But yeah, that was.
But no, that was a lot of fun. But we were there to do a lot of stuff with the we had our own kind of things going on with the UN Ocean Conference. You were on a bunch of panels, and obviously like this year in 2025, as we're doing this on the New Year's Eve of 2025, there was a lot of stuff that was going on. So obviously it was important to show up to international conferences to discuss. The big thing is that I mean, kind of affected both of our countries, like you from the US, me being from Canada, is the fact that Trump became president, right? He was officially inaugurated, whether we liked it or not. We knew there were going to be problems with the environment because his administration, he's not Mr. Pro environment. He's Mr. Pro natural resources. We're going to drill, baby, drill was literally his phrase, his catchphrase to get in. So we knew the oil leases were going to come up, which he did last time. That plan, deep sea mining, all of a sudden kind of came out of nowhere, and is affecting a lot of places. There's a lot of proposals to go in, which I think is interesting. So there's a lot of stuff going on. The main thing at the beginning of the year was the fact that NOAA lost a lot of its funding. A lot of people were cut from NOAA through the Doge moves. And so, a lot of our friends and colleagues did not have jobs, lost their jobs because of it. And they're fantastic people. They worked hard, all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden the proposals for offshore leases and deep sea mining started to come out. Let's start with deep sea mining if you wanted to, or do you want to start somewhere else?
Well, it was really just, comment on it. Like it was a little bit of we knew it was coming. And Steve Bannon, one of his advisors, he called it like it's just overloading us. Like it just like throw so much at us that we wouldn't know what to do. There's a phrase he had. And that's kind of what happened. He was inaugurated at noon on January 20th. And then he immediately went to the Oval Office and started signing all of these executive orders, which of themselves, don't mean anything, right? They don't, they're not laws. They're just like he's directing the staff on how to do sort of things. And uh, he pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Agreement on day one. He ended the 30 by 30 initiative on day one. And then, we also, and then we got these just sort of like daily outrages. It felt like it was like every day it was something else. And that's when we got the deep sea mining. Um, and the thing I was most worried about, coming out of the gate was the monuments. And for so the monuments are a type of park, a protected area.
Mm-hmm.
We have national parks, we have national wildlife refuges, but the monuments, in the United States, a lot of national parks begin lives as a monument. And when he was president last time, he rolled back 2 land monuments and 1 marine monument. And I've dedicated most of my last 20 years on these marine monuments. So at the start of the year, that's what I was most concerned about, and that's what I was going to spend most of my time on. Uh, in January of last year, I knew nothing about deep sea mining. I didn't work on deep
Right.
sea mining, and the way I thought about it is there won't be if deep sea mining happens, it's not going to happen in the U.S. Like the last place it will happen will be the U.S. Because we have our environmental laws that protect us, and I always thought that the countries that would end up being the first to mine the deep sea would be the ones where mining companies could pay people off,
Yeah.
find local leaders who were corrupt, who would do these stupid things, who would rip up the seafloor without caring about the environment. Um, Sadly, that turned out to be the United States has now turned into that country. It seems like.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, it was just kind of like a rolling thing, and he actually over the course of the year he didn't roll back any of the land monuments, but he did try to open up one of the marine monuments, the Pacific Islands
Yeah.
Heritage Marine National Monument, um, and he did it, with a decree. And one of our partners, Earth Justice, sued them and found that they had, basically, accused them of saying that the way they did it was that they didn't go through the agreed upon laws in order to do so, and so the courts closed it back off, and nothing else happened on monuments. They, I suspect that'll be a 2026 thing, that we're gonna fish baby fish. Um, we're gonna fish baby fish, and then with the deep sea mining, we're gonna mine baby mine.
You think
And
that's what it's going to be?
I think it's gonna take longer, because there's like it doesn't exist yet, right? There's nobody who's deep sea mining. It'll actually, when these places get open to fishing, there's already fishing boats, right? There's fishing boats in
Yeah.
Hawaii,
Yeah.
and the fishing boats they can now go to those protected areas, and they can fish them out. The deep sea mining I think is going to take a lot longer, because one, like it's not actually technologically proven if they can do it at a commercial scale. But I think that we are going to be overwhelmed with public comment periods and responding to um, you know calls for science and NEPA and all this stuff. So I think that's going to keep us very, very busy. But it's happening everywhere all at once, right? So it's American Samoa. And then on November they announced the Marianas, and then in December they announced they're going to do it in Virginia. And they
Yeah.
also announced towards this month that they're going to do it in the Clarion Clipperton Zone. So we're going to be spread thin, right? And
The Clarion Clipperton zone, that's high
hey,
seas. That's
yeah,
not within their own uh
no,
like their own territorial waters or
yeah,
anything.
I mean that's a
They're
whole other issue too,
EEZ.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Are
there
they
were,
allowed?
it's. Are you going to tell Donald Trump no? I mean, that's. I think
Well, that's
that's.
what I mean. Like aren't there like I know I mean the high seas treaty is going to come into effect in January, but also that's international waters. I guess you can pretty much
Yeah,
do whatever you want unless another country or countries are willing to stand up for it. Pretty much you can do anything you want.
yeah. So like, there were positive things internationally, right? Like a lot of NGOs are out there. Today's the last day of the year, so they're posting the big wins. And the big win was that the High Seas Treaty was ratified,
Hmm.
and then the other big win was the fisheries subsidies rule was agreed to at I think the World Trade Organization. And if you look at the High Seas Treaty, this is reported incorrectly. The New York Times actually reported that the High Seas Treaty would protect 30% of the ocean. That's actually not. So that's just wrong. Like that's actually not
Yeah,
in
that's
the
not in
treaty.
there. No.
That was like an NGO communications professional told the reporter that he didn't fact check it and he put it in. The words fishing and mining are also not in the High Seas Treaty. And you know, it's too soon to tell whether the High Seas Treaty will protect the ocean because the U.S. is not a party to it. And what will happen if if Donald Trump issues a permit for an American company to go mine the high seas? It's kind of akin to giving you a permit to go fish on the high seas, right? You're an American company, you go and do it.
Yeah.
How are the other countries going to respond, right? What is China going to do? What is Russia going to do? And these are the great unknowns. And the interesting thing about these international treaties, the fisheries treaties, the mining treaties, in ISA, the Seabed Authority, is it's all mixed up with international relations, where it's not just mining, right?
Yeah.
It's everything else. It's Ukraine, it's Gaza, it's give and take on all of these issues. And this is a trip. This administration is drill baby drill, mine baby mine, fish baby fish. And I am worried that they're going to attempt mining in the Clarion Clipperton zone. It's going to take some time, right? Like it's not going to happen right away.
Well, I think that's the thing is I guess it comes down to the timing of it, right? It's I don't think there'll be we've had a good friend of ours, Dr. Andrew Thaler, who's one of the experts in deep sea mining especially from an ecological point of view, but he was editor of the Deep Sea Mining magazine. He stayed in close touch with both companies as well as in environmental scientists and deep sea scientists. He's a deep sea ecologist himself. He's been on my podcast a number of times. We've had conversations with him about deep sea mining, and even if I think he said even if we started today, like deep sea mining today, that those materials would not get into regular production for another 30 to 50 years. And I'm being generous here. He said 50 years. So it's going to take a while for it to happen. But I think that the thing that people don't realize, he really laid it out for me. All the AI videos and all the AI pictures that we've seen, even if you go into ChatGPT and you say, create a picture of deep sea mining, what it would look like. And you'll see a truck of some sort that's on the bottom that's just taking up these nodules, right? Polymetallic nodules that they talk about from the bottom. But that's it. That's all you see. You don't really see anything else. And what Andrew laid out to me the last time I had him on about this is it was there's something that's grabbing these things, whether it's a truck or whatever, a remotely operated vehicle or whatever that might be, or somebody in there. And then there's this pipe that goes from the deep sea all the way up to the surface that is literally guiding these nodules up to the surface to a boat where there's probably going to be a number of different boats that are around that area. We don't know how large it'll be. We don't know what that's going to look like. The first ones that do it probably not going to be the most efficient ones, the best ones. Yeah. And you're going to have all that. So there's this pipe that goes through the entire water column. So locally, you've got this physical thing that's in the water column, plus the noise that's generated from the water column because of it's not going to be silent. I guarantee you that. And then everything that can be affected around it, whether it be noise or whether that's local or whether that's a couple of kilometers or tens or even hundreds of kilometers, that noise traveling, we're not going to know until the modeling is actually done. But I don't think people realize what's happening. And every time I post about it, people are like, well, it's not as if it's digging like a mining on land. It's digging into the earth and stuff, but it is taking a part of the sediment out. And there was a recent journal article that was published this year, I believe, that looked at I think it was in the Clipperton zone, where they looked at deep sea mining happening. And then they looked at what was what the I guess the biodiversity was before, and what the diversity was after of the animals that were in the sediment. Because a lot of worms and invertebrates and all that in the sediment. Some people care about them, some people don't. That's for another time. But they realized that the recovery after 2 years was not fully recovered. So I already know there's already a 2-year non-recovery, like fully recovered period. Whether that's going to be 3, 4, 5.
A third of the animals were gone.
A third of the animals were gone. So 30% of the animals were still gone. They hadn't come back, which I think a lot of people thought they would come back. Already shows that there's going to be an environmental impact. I guess the question, yeah, please do.
And that's assuming it goes right.
Right?
Yeah. That's like the best case scenario. Have you ever seen a movie on the ocean that doesn't end in disaster? Like think about it.
Absolutely
James
not.
Cameron, The Abyss, disaster. Titanic, disaster. There's always a shipwreck. There's a storm. There's an oil explosion. Something blows up. Something breaks.
And you know how it always starts with the scientists saying, "Hey, we have a problem here," and there's some bigwig business guy who's like, "I don't really care about your problem. I want money," and then disaster happens.
It's also the ocean, man. Like the ocean is like, if something can go wrong on the ocean, it will. And they're going to have these big machines out there, and they're going to break. Things are going to go wrong.
And let's be honest, it's the deep sea ocean too. It's not as if it's like 40 meters down or 100 feet down or 30 feet down or whatever that might be. It's not as if you can actually see it from a boat. This is deep sea. Like, remember the last time we had a problem in the deep sea? There was some little oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And what was the problem there? We couldn't figure out how to stop it because it was in the deep sea. Because we don't have the ability. We didn't have the ability back then to do that. And they had to actually go. Who did they go to? James Cameron, to find out how to stop it, because he had some deep sea everything. Like, it's just there's so many other problems. And as Andrew Thaler said, like, we have this opportunity right now with deep sea mining to do it right, to take our time with it, make sure the regulations are fine. And there have been meetings, whether we thought they were going right or not is another another time, an episode for another time. But they've been working on this for like over a decade on the regulations. We finally have someone at the ISA, the International Seabed Authority. We finally have someone in power who's an oceanographer, who is, worried about the ocean and wants to make sure that it's done right. Somebody involved at this, like, came in 2024, 2025 as she was elected as the chairman. And then we get this rogue, thing happening outside the ISA with the US, because they're not part of the UN law of the sea. And they're not part of the and that's why they're not part of the ISA. They're just going to go out and do whatever the hell they want. And it just kind of like undermines everything that's been done. And you're just like, we're rushing into it like we normally do. And I really don't think the administration has any idea of the repercussions or the consequences, nor do I think they care.
No, they don't care.
They don't care. Right. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this year, if there's actually any progress on that. But I know the metals company, the company who really wants to do this and approach the government of doing this, they're ready. I think they're a little desperate too.
In Clarion Clipperton, it's the metals company. And then within the U.S. EEC and American Samoa and potentially Marianas, it's Impossible Metals. And I kind of chuckled to myself when you said the ISA has been doing this for decades. We don't need to rush it. But domestically, the U.S. government gave my community in the Marianas 30 days, a decade versus 30, initially 30 days to comment. And that was extended to 60 days. But the comment period, imagine it like on November 9th, before deep sea mining was happening in the Marianas. Nobody was talking about deep sea mining. Nobody knew anything. And then on November 10th, there was a press release, right? And it's through the media, it was announced that the federal government emailed the press release to the local government. And that's how they let them know that this was happening. They emailed.
No conversation.
They just emailed the press release. And then the thing popped into the Federal Register when the government was closed. Let's not forget that. And then it extended over Thanksgiving. And then they got the 30-day extension and extended over Christmas, extended over New Year. and like no one's coming back to work until January 6th. People aren't spending their Christmas vacation learning all about deep sea mining and
Right.
deep sea ecology so they can respond to this RFI. And it absolutely is being rushed in the United States, and it's going to move forward, uh, and ultimately it's just going to lead in disaster, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
not just like an environmental disaster, but just like cultural disaster. It's leading to lots of conflict in the islands right now. Like people are very upset. There have been newspaper articles where elected officials are talking about leaving the United States over issues like this, because this is not the first time Republican or even Democrat that uh, some of these ideas have been forced on people out in the territories without talking to them first to see if they think it's a good idea.
Now, can we just, as I enter here, you mentioned earlier this is your community. You're from the Mariana Islands.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
just talk a little bit about being from the Mariana Islands and what that community is like,
sure.
and some of the like I know it's a long story and we'll probably get through it a number of times throughout this podcast, not necessarily this episode, because it's the history with the US and the Mariana Islands, especially when it comes to environmental stewardship,
Well,
I
protection and
guess,
destruction.
and
Yeah, so
protection. Yeah.
I was born on Guam, but my dad's family is from Saipan. My mom's family is from Worcester, Mass. So I am Irish Chamorro. So like not only I'm like the island guy, but I'm also that asshole from Worcester. That was my friend Mike gave me that one. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a sweatshirt that says that asshole from Worcester, because that means something in Massachusetts, I think.
Gotcha.
Maine South Worcester, which is the best neighborhood in Worcester, is where I lived there from the age of 5 to 15, something like that.
Okay.
But from the island, um, and my parents divorced, and I went to live with my mom in Massachusetts. But I would spend summers back on the island, and then after college, I went back home to the island, where I worked for a number of years until leaving to go work in Washington D.C. for big NGOs, and that's kind of what I went to school for. And I've been in D.C. ever since. To a certain degree, small islands are like small town America or like small town Canada. Like my name Villa Gomez is a large family. Like I am the 50th cousin in my family. I've got thousands of relatives. My dad was a prominent person. My dad was, I think, the second lawyer to come out of the islands,
Okay.
and helped. He was actually, funny enough, he was opposed to joining the United States. That's fun fact. But he helped write the Constitution. So after we joined the United States, they had to write a constitution. So they held a constitutional convention. He was on it. He helped,
When did Mariana Islands join the United States?
76,
76. Okay.
right around the time that I was born.
Yeah.
Um, so it's small town America, but it's the Pacific, and the island has gone through so many changes just in my lifetime. Like when I was born, there were maybe 10,000 people living on the island, and then that shot up as high as 70,000 people about 15 years ago. But there's been a economic crisis, and it's down below 50,000. So there's back and forth
Yeah.
with the economy is always a problem
Mhm.
in these small islands. But everybody. Like you literally, like I walk into, if you go to like a local restaurant or a local bar, I know every single person there. And like they
Even
know
now.
me.
Even
Yeah,
now.
yeah, even now, yeah, 100%. And like they know my dad, and
Yeah.
they remember if I owe them money. Um, so really, really small, tight knit community. And there's a Pacific saying, a Pacific scholar who said, "We're not small island states; we're big ocean states."
Right.
And when you're from the territories, like you're just taught that you're a commonwealth, and you don't really, like, people back home don't really understand our political status, really. They think like maybe we're just kind of like, are we a country who's kind of like teamed up with the United States? And they don't really understand the benefits, the negatives of being a territory, or which is modern colonization, and that's like that can be very uncomfortable to even say that to somebody like, oh, it's un-American to say colonialism. And it's like, yeah, well, but it's real, right?
Canada. I'm from Canada.
Yeah.
It's a
Canada
thing.
has provinces and territories, right?
We have territories as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and none of it. Those are territories.
Well, but the island is home. I've been in DC this will be my 16th year coming up. But I maintain strong family relationships and working relationships. I'm on the board of a local NGO that I founded almost 20 years ago, called Friends of the Mariana Trench. And I still participate in the politics back at home. I went to our island we don't get to vote for president, but we get to choose the candidates. And so some people go to the Republican National Convention and they pick candidates. I went to the Democratic National Convention and cast my ballot for Kamala Harris last year. So I'm still pretty plugged in, even though I live in Washington, D.C. And for a lot of the conservation work, the way I think about my work for the Marianas is that I'm like the eyes and ears in DC, and I try to raise the profile of people back home. So I create opportunities for people back home to speak in other places. And I've had so much help. Like, it's not like it's Angela doing this. It's, hey, we want somebody from the Marianas to go speak at this thing. And I help make connections. But I've brought people to DC, people to Climate Cup, our ocean, and it's important. The U.S. Pacific territories are home to 30% of all U.S. oceans, and then just the Marianas is 10% of all U.S. oceans. But about 250,000 people live there, right? About 200,000 on Guam, 50,000 in Marianas. So 1 million square kilometers. The Marianas coast is bigger than the West Coast. It's bigger than the East Coast. But we don't play as big a role in managing those waters as people in California or people in New York and Florida get to do. And from my role in Washington, D.C., I try to make that more fair. I'd like to call it decolonization, but it's so far away from actually being decolonization that it's not really what it is. It's more of putting Band-Aids over the larger problem. But there are more people from the territories involved in ocean conservation at the important tables today than there were 10 years ago. And just one observation, like I was at a internal large NGO meeting about deep sea mining earlier this year, and there was somebody from Guam, there was somebody from Saipan, and there was somebody from American Samoa. And 5 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. But now, like, we actually get to be in some of these important rooms where people are discussing our future. And that person's me, right?
Yeah.
And it's I've been gone for 16 years, right? I'm a sellout, right? I left the island. I'm not living there suffering, living like the real island life. And so even like some people on the island don't appreciate that I'm that guy sometimes. They think
I get it.
And it should be somebody else. I'm
for sure.
I'm a DC swamp creature. But yeah.
But you're the person who's helping get people into those conversations because you're plugged into the DC. Yeah, like you're plugged into the DC sort of ocean conservation NGO game quite a bit. You know a lot of people and government too.
The organization I work for is probably the most prominent progressive think tank in Washington, D.C.
Right.
So we get into a lot of rooms. And like my colleagues are like very prominent people in the United States.
They are.
And and they work on like big national security and healthcare and education, like the big issues in America. I'm the ocean dude, right?
Still
And
big issue. Just
yeah,
it's
so it's
only a
like,
big issue when it's
I
not
think
directly affecting a lot of the people in the continental US necessarily,
I
but
think ocean conservation is the most important issue in the country.
100%. 100%.
But the reality is that in this city, military issues are a much bigger issue. Economic issues are a much bigger issue. But I get to focus on ocean issues and indigenous issues, and increasingly getting to write about some other stuff too, which is just been a great way to kind of like grow my career.
Yeah, and bringing all this, the reason why I wanted to get the background from you in this was with this proposal coming in so late in the game and only having a couple of months, not even for public comment to get people in the CNMI to the Mariana Islands to be like, hey, no, we don't want this, or we want to know more information, or we want this. It kind of gives context, especially when you said like you don't necessarily have the decision making ability as a territory that you would as a state, like people in like New York or Florida or anywhere else that's actually a state. Just they don't have the same voices in the legal framework. Having people that are from Saipan, that are from Guam and other places to represent in the rooms where the decisions are made before it even goes out to public comment is a huge thing. From this perspective, with this deep sea mining coming in or potentially coming into the Mariana Islands, from your connections back there, and I know we have you introduced me to Brad Rosalo, who's like the news guy,
He's
on
he's
YouTube.
Saipan's only celebrity.
Yeah, he's Saipan's only.
Brad, if there's a job to have had on Saipan, Brad has had that job. Now he's like the leading voice of the media. He's got his own morning show, and
love it.
It's like really
I listen to it every once in a while. I'm like, I want to know I know more about Saipan than I ever have. But
Brad,
it's like
Brad, it's just like my buddy Brad. He may or may not listen to this. He is like one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. Like top 5 funniest humans I've ever met, and he is just like the most charming, hilarious guy you'll ever meet. You should watch Brad's show.
Yeah, and he's originally from Buffalo, which is awesome, which is like 45 minutes away from here.
Long time suffering Bills fan.
Bills fan.
He's like, this is the year. Yeah. The Bills are going to go all the way this year.
We'll see. But no, for sure. But like, so like, what are people like from talking to people back home? What are people saying about this deep sea mining issue?
Yeah, so let me provide a little bit more context.
Yeah, please.
So there was a story in the Washington Post today about the casino on Saipan. It was a big expose, and there's this hope that this casino could be the economic savior. Not in the story is that in the last day, the governor announced that they are closing the public schools every other Monday because they don't have enough money. Wow. Have you ever heard of that happen? That only happens. This is the United States of America. It's like they have not recovered from COVID. And you're on this tiny island and you're trying to make a living. You're trying to keep the lights on. And for these leaders, they've got to make payroll. They've got to keep the generator going. They got to keep the schools open, the hospital open, and they are not making it. So when you show up with a casino, they're like, ooh, how much money can we make? And now somebody has shown up and said, deep sea mining. And you're like, okay, well, listen. And so you're not hearing total opposition. Like people, the leaders wanted to hear what they had to say. And again, on November 9th, nobody had an opinion on this. Like nobody knew anything. And from some of the leaders, they didn't make statements right away. Like nobody came out in opposition to this right away. But as it made its way through the community, the leaders go to the birthday party, they go to the cafe, they get their coffee, they try to get dinner. People are like, hey, I'm concerned about this deep sea mining thing. And so over on Guam, which is a different territory with a different culture, it's as different as New York and Boston, Toronto and Montreal, maybe not that different, but different. Toronto and another Canadian city.
Gotcha.
That's not Montreal.
Say Vancouver. Let's say
Vancouver. Yeah, but that's you know what I mean. Yeah. Guam is already there. Guam is like, no, we're absolutely not.
Okay. Absolutely.
Like
even from the leadership.
No, from the leadership. Yeah, like Guam is there.
Leadership.
They've kind of made a decision, and on Saipan, it's emerging. Like we're seeing the different leaders are putting things on social media, but they haven't had this unified. They haven't come together to take that picture and issue the press release like they did on Guam.
Yeah.
So this opposition is coming together, but at the end of the day, you're right. They don't actually have any power. So what do you do? And the answer is it's narrative, and it's gathering allies, because there are other influential, powerful people who can help influence this. And for all that the Trump administration has done this year, Trump just wants you to love him. It's like he just wants to be
the best ever. He's the best.
And like you see this, like the people who clearly do not like him, but like they go kiss his ass. Here, would you like the FIFA Peace Prize? Congratulations, here's your FIFA Peace Prize.
We've never done it before, but you get the first.
And now he's like, I love FIFA. I'm gonna do anything I want for you.
Yeah.
And like so it's a back and forth, but we've seen him back off of things that are not popular.
That's true.
Doge came in hot and heavy, and we were all worried about Elon. We were all pissed off at Elon Musk. We were vandalizing Tesla. I wasn't vandalizing Teslas, but Teslas were being vandalized. When's the last time you heard of Doge? Right?
Yeah.
It was wildly unpopular. That they walked away from it.
It's true.
The other thing that was wildly unpopular is selling our public lands. Right? Americans love the American character is based on the West. Right? It's based on wide open lands, camping, hunting, being out in the wilderness. And I've got cousins and relatives who live in Wyoming who are not liberals, and they were posting about the public lands. And there've now been like 2 rounds of this, and they've backed off both times. And so the way you win this is you get other people to think it's unpopular. And you do that with media and social media and narrative, and you get politicians to make statements, but you also have to go take meetings.
The public lands, they try to do that in this first administration as well. And I remember a story, David Schiffman, also known as Why Sharks Matter, came out with a story talking about how he got, was it sharks protected? Or something like that. Something they were trying to get it, and it ended up being where Mark Rubio, who was the senator at the time, is a big avid fisherman and hunter and loves being in the wild. And so he actually, it was the public lands.
Wasn't it recreational fishing in Florida?
It was recreational fishing in Florida, but it was also public lands too. There's 2 stories that had to do with him. And he was like, no, I actually like being out in these parks. I actually like being out in these public lands, like where they're free, where it's natural, because it's peaceful. When I go hunting, like a lot of people, when I know hunting can get a bad rap because you're actually killing animals, but a lot of hunters are very much conservationists. They love being, they're not just there to hunt, but they're there for the calmness, looking around. Like when you hunt, you're a lot of it sitting and waiting, and so when you sit and wait, you're observing everything and seeing everything happen. And, Ducks Unlimited is an organization that came out of duck hunting. Like it literally is about like duck hunters that came together and want to protect wetlands. And so like Mark Rubio, who's staunch Republican, was like, no, I'm not going to let this happen. And I'm going to, kibosh this, especially in Florida, when they tried to do that in Florida. So like, you're right. It goes across party lines when it comes to this type of, this type of conservation or ideals, right?
100%.
Yeah. So
that's what we got to do. So that was 2020-25. It was rough, man. I mean, it was just like it was to quote Snoop, if it's not one thing, it's a motherfucking other. And it was just one thing after another. And stuff we didn't expect. Some stuff we knew were coming. And then he didn't get to other things that we thought were going to happen. And looking into the new year, it's going to be a lot of the same. It's, some of this is literally spelled out in the Project 2025 playbook. Like after all this time, we can just go look at that and be like, oh, They wrote it in
Yeah,
black and
it's
white.
predictable now because you just have to go
Yeah.
into that playbook. Now, something that I did not expect as a Canadian is Trump had a pretty big influence on the Canadian environment, or will have a big influence on the Canadian environment, just as much as he did on the US. Well, probably not as much, but
Tell me about
in a
that.
way. Because what happened? Well, first we had an election, a federal election. So, I have to give you like the basis. Trudeau resigned. They had to find another leader. Mark Carney, who used to be the head of the Canadian bank, was the head of the British bank or the UK bank. Went through Brexit, had a very big like financial and international economics sort of appeal to him, and expertise. Never been a politician before. He became the leader of the Liberal Party. And it was interesting because when Trudeau was there, people were done. Like, the way it happens in Canadian politics is you get a prime minister who's prime minister for 1, 2, 3 election cycles, and they can be as long as they want. As long as they get elected back in, they can go as long. They don't have the 8-year sort of rule. But what happens is, like, we had that for the last 3 prime ministers. They were there for like 10 years or 9 years, and then people get sick of them. And then there's, all the stuff that happens kind of stacks up, and people get tired of it, and they'll vote the opposite party. So it's basically, we have Liberals, we have Conservatives, we have the NDP, which is more left leaning. We have the Bloc Québécois, which are literally just there for Quebec, and they just want to separate. So they can never be prime minister, but they can affect the whether the Conservatives get in or not. They're more conservative. Yeah, seriously. Well, that's coming up too provincially, so that'll be interesting. Yeah. But and so what happened this time is Trudeau. People were sick of Trudeau. COVID happened. Nobody can get through that unscathed, and so he is very, very, very unpopular. He resigns, but at the time, the Pierre Poilievre, who is the conservative leader, was like, "This is mine for the taking." Like, he had a 30% lead on Mark Carney, even when on Trudeau, if Trudeau had continued on. He resigns, Carney's in, and because Trump all of a sudden starts with this 51st state bullshit.
Governor Trudeau. He was calling him
Governor he kept calling him Governor Trudeau. The entire country, who was very divided between conservative and liberals, was like, screw this, we're coming together. We won the international, like, 4 Nations Cup, and that was our battle. That was our war. And we said, after that, we are going to come together as Canada, as a country, and we are going to elect somebody that can handle Trump. And Pierre Poilievre just could not handle Trump. But
I'm sorry, but you're also welcome.
Yeah, exactly. It was a bit of it kind of helped us because the Conservatives are very much, well, they were kind of going towards like the Republicans of today, kind of like that kind of way. And I'll tell you, I quote Pierre Poilievre, or paraphrase, Pierre Poilievre did an interview, the leader of the Conservative Party did an interview the other day where they basically asked him, like, with because the big thing for us is pipelines, right? We want pipelines. And so they asked him, like, a lot of the pipelines are going through Indigenous lands. And so they're like, well, if the Indigenous community says, hey, we don't want pipelines, will you not put pipelines together? Because that's the law. You can't go through a reservation, an Indigenous land, without their permission. And he's like, well, we can listen to them, but we don't have to, like, listen to them. Like, they can say that they're against it, but we can still do it because it's for the better of the country. That's his sort of leaning. So I'm glad he's not in. He even lost his seat. He had to go through another route to get back to leadership of the party. Probably lose it in January, but that's another thing. But now that Carney's in, he's a banker. So he's like, Mr. I'm going to be flip-flopping between liberal and conservative values. And he's now expanding pipelines because of Trump. Because Trump's like, all these tariffs, and we can't rely on an ally, like economic ally, as we did before. He even says CUSA, which is like the new NAFTA, that Trump said was the best deal ever, like when his first thing, now says was the worst deal ever, even though he negotiated it and bragged about it. And so now we're changing all of our environmental policies, or those are all up for grabs, because we're building pipelines, not only to the west, but now to the East Coast. And so everything is kind of changing. We just signed a memorandum of understanding with the province of Alberta to build more pipelines. And which is crazy because that was never going to happen under Trudeau. Should never happen. But but the funny thing is there's a lot of caveats in that agreement. First Nations has to agree with it. The last First Nations assembly, people are like, we don't agree with it. It's not gonna have it. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens, but it's changing our environmental policies because we have to switch our entire economy to rely on the US now that we can't rely on it. We have to rely on like East Coast, like the Southeast Asia, as well as Europe. So it, in a way, Trump affected Canada quite a bit, you know, in terms
can't
of
get
like
American
tariffs.
booze anymore. Like I've seen those stories.
Oh, not in Ontario. They removed them from the shelves. They removed them from the shelves.
No more Jack Daniels. No more.
No more Jack. A lot of whiskey companies are having to downsize in the U.S. because they relied so much on Ontarians to buy their liquor, which
Vegas
sucks. Like,
is also suffering. I've heard. Like the Canadians have stopped going to Vegas.
yeah, our I think it's like we're in the billions of dollars of like contributing to the US, and now that's gone because like I think the governor of Massachusetts went to Canada to try and beg them to come over, for us to come over. We're not going to the US.
Like, how great is your country going to start doing? Like, you're going to drink less, you're going to be gambling less. Like, this could be like 2026 could be Canada's year.
So just to let you know, we make our own booze. We have Canadian rye. We have Canadian whiskey, right? We have rye. We have beer like you wouldn't believe. Our beer is not 3%. Our beer is much more and is better and is everything. So we still drink. Like,
you also make legendary beer commercials. Like, what was
the I am Molson commercial? Yeah. That was played during the Four Nations Cup, like when we beat the US. Like that was it. Like that was our battle, you know.
Speaking of beating the US, you almost won the World Series. You were 1 out away from winning.
It's too soon.
Was
too soon.
I'm
not ready to talk about it yet.
This was the first time the Blue Jays had ever appeared in the World Series and then lost the World Series.
Yeah, we won 2 in a row.
You thought that you just go and you win.
I mean, that's what we try and do. I mean, we've done it in the past. You know, we did it in the past. We almost had this one. I thought we had it in the bag, but you know, Dodgers are a great team.
Yeah.
I think what was nice about the Jays in this one, it really, and I know most of them aren't Canadian, but it really defined a bit of that Canadian grit that we had. Where
also friendly.
What's that?
Friendly grit,
100%. But the culture there was everybody was like all the team seemed to rally around each other. Not to say that the Dodgers didn't, but like the Jays were underdogs coming through from the beginning of the season all the way. Like there's no way people expected them to be there.
They just pulled away with it at the end, though.
Yeah, and they just kept winning. They just kept rallying, and they kept it was great. And hopefully next year we can do it again or get close to it. So
I gotta come up and visit you. We should go to another game. We went to a game in 2019, 2018.
Yeah. When you came up for TIFF, right?
Yes,
it was the Toronto International Rob Stewart's movie. It was the second movie that came out. But I'll tell you, the tickets are going to be a lot more expensive than they were back then. Now that we've done well, it seems in the Toronto fashion, they decided to hike up the tickets. You know, at the beginning of the year, I was able to get 500 level seats for like $40. Now. It's like $240.
Maybe you should come down to DC then, because the team here.
We'll watch the Jays play there. We'll watch the Jays play there.
Oh my gosh, they're so bad. They're just such a terrible team.
Hey, it happens though. We've been through it. The Jays have been through. I mean, our Leafs, our Toronto Maple Leafs hockey, we suck. So, which is really interesting to see because I know we suck every year. We're kind of like the Bills of hockey right now, where it's like every year it's like, this is our year. And then you're like, not good.
This could be the year for the Bills.
I mean, it could be. It could be. Like, I can't say it's not. Like, they're not terrible, but you know, Kansas City's not in it. So Kansas City's not going to win it. So we'll see. We'll see who wins it.
Sorry, Taylor.
Well, look, let's it's coming up on the hour. Before we go, let's just talk a little bit about what we have planned for 2026.
Oh, good.
You know, we came up with this idea a couple of months ago. We've been discussing it back and forth. This is something we plan on doing every week live. I believe we discussed the Thursday at 5, right? Is
Thursday
that the
at
idea?
5 on the drive
Thursday at
home.
5 p.m. Eastern on the drive home. So it'll be a bit of a drive at 5 kind of thing. We're going to be discussing ocean news of the week. The main thing we're going to talk about advocacy. We're talking about what you can do to protect the ocean. We're going to talk about science. We're going to have guests on. Sometimes it'll be a panel. Sometimes it'll just be the two of us. But we're definitely going to have some things. Love for you guys to participate. Put comments on. It'd be greatly appreciated. But this is going to be a lot of fun. We'll have some fun doing this kind of stuff. Maybe come up with a couple of games as we go through this and see what we can come up with. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Angela and I love to chat all the time. And so this is a way to kind of keep in touch because we live so far away from each other.
We're going to see each other once a week. We don't normally communicate live that often.
Usually it's text.
It's an ongoing WhatsApp discussion.
Yeah. And usually it's about Jays are winning. Jays won that. Can you believe that? Yeah. So, this will be a lot of fun. The polar bears with flip flops, like I said, Angela and I, we are almost like the same. We have very similar birthdays, exactly a month apart. And we have very similar paths, but different in a way, in life. And we just get along really, really well. So I'm looking forward to doing this with you, Angela. It's going to be a lot of fun. And what do you do? Before we go, what do you do for New Year's?
We're just gonna hang out. It's me and the wife. We're in DC. Nice. My wife. This is not me. My wife has some traditions that we do, and they are done for me. The first one being we have to get a bowl of fruit. A giant bowl of fruit with 12 different fruits in it. It's like to welcome the new year and
okay. Sounds great.
The fruit is for the good.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to eat chicken today or tomorrow. It's because she thinks that my wife is from the Philippines.
Okay.
So this is her Filipino thing. Chickens scratch out a living and eat worms. And so if I eat chicken today or tomorrow, I will have to scratch out a living and eat worms. So we don't do that. And then as we get closer to midnight, she'll find piles of coins and hide them around the house in corners. And be like, I'm hiding this money so that we're prosperous in the new year.
Okay. In every room,
everywhere, just
okay.
Over there and over there.
Yeah.
And then as midnight comes, she'll go around and open every door and turn on every light.
Nice.
That welcomes in the new year with open doors and open lights. And then she's got to go work tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. She works at a hotel. So she's probably going to go to bed at 12:04.
Yeah. What's all the lights? Will she go to bed with all the lights on, or how long do the lights have to stay on?
I'm not sure. I think they just have to be on at the moment that it turns
okay.
midnight.
Gotcha.
You have any travel coming up this year? Do you have any big trips?
I would like nothing. No, I traveled a lot last year. I am planning, and I'd like to say I am going to the International Marine Conservation Congress in Scotland. I think it's Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, I would also like to go. I went to the last one in South Africa.
Yeah.
Do I have a paper coming out? I don't think I have any papers coming out.
You got to get a paper coming out.
Yeah, no, I got to write this. I think it's probably too late with the scientific process. But maybe we could do something on deep sea mining or. I've been to 3 of them. I went to St. John's in Canada.
We saw each other there.
And there was one in Malaysia. You went to that one.
Yep, went to that one. Yeah. Did you go to the South African one?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, you were a keynote speaker at the South African one.
Keynote speaker. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the last 2, I've hosted seminars.
Yes.
So I was a keynote speaker and I ran a seminar.
Gotcha.
On the stuff that I was doing. But yeah, this is a weird year. What am I going to do this year? What are the big ocean issues going to be? And part of my job is to figure that out.
Well, I mean, it's hard to predict, but obviously we'll probably talk about this in the next couple of episodes, but the offshore leasing plans for oil and gas is going to be huge. Deep sea mining is still going to be huge to see what's happening with that. Fisheries and marine sanctuaries, hopefully that won't go through and continues won't go through, but that's could happen. There's so many things that could happen that are bad. Love for you to do a presentation on something that was good, and hopefully something good comes out of 2026.
Yeah, I am
Lack of
giving a
movement.
presentation on kelp this month or in January
Nice.
at a kelp conference, but it's online. They invited me. I was like, "Oh, where am I going?"
Yeah.
You're going to sit at your desk and you're going to talk into your screen.
There you go. There you go. That's how I make the living. It's talking
yeah.
into the screen. But yeah, no, hopefully we'll see each other there, and maybe we can do a Polar Bears in Flip Flops live
Episode 1,
show.
dude, we did it.
We did it. It's done. See you next Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, you enjoy. Have a happy New Year, and we'll talk to you in the New Year.
Bye, everybody.
All right, see ya.